Good evening, guys. This is Kevin with KDI and your Thursday evening YouTube update. Haven't done one of these in a while, they're long overdue. Hasn't been much to talk about, to be honest. Today we'll look at the USDA report that just launched, a little bit of numbers in with that, as well as just some general market stuff. Let's start with, earlier in the week, I went on the AgriTalk show, the radio show with Chip, and Chip was curious, since he hasn't had me on that long. I've only been a guest there for about past, maybe 6 months, and I feel very fortunate to get to go on that show at all. But anyway, he was curious how I looked at things. Do I use the U.S. balance sheet first to get a clue where things are moving, or do I use the world's, balance sheet? And he was trying to figure out how I look at kind of the wheat world, because his corn world with him was not making a lot of sense. And, the corn market just goes down and down and down. It's following wheat. They're kind of spiraling around each other, so you can go down next. And the world balance sheet in corn is just so tight. It's so tight. We've got to have a good crop this year. Brazil has a good crop compared to last year, but that doesn't fix the problem unless the U.S. has a good crop. So it's very odd to see the market making such a pronounced move down right now when the weather season starts next week, and the weather season, and a pattern looks threatening to me. Well, I'm still thinking we're looking at a big hot ridge, and they're models today are moving that ridge east. The Pacific Northwest is going to cool off, get into a below normal temp scheme through the end of June, and who knows about July yet. It's too early to tell. But next 15 days we're looking cool and possibly damp here in the Northwest while the heat ridge moves east. So the question as we get into July is, does that ridge set up over the Rocky Mountains so it's not bothering the Corn Belt much, or does it continue just a little bit east of there and set up shop in kind of a abnormal spot, which would do a lot of damage? I don't know. We will see. Like right now, it looks threatening to me, but the market could care less. So, anyway, Chip was trying to understand how and who continued to sell. I made a small little macro argument and just saying it was, kind of what the wheat market problem has been for the last, year and a half. It's just we've been fighting an unknown seller that just continues to sell. Doesn't matter what the news is, and doesn't matter what the weather is. It just, nothing matters. So both those markets are running into that, and we've seen quite a few bullish chart formations build on both corn and wheat, and then they just start to fail. If corn holds where it did today and starts to bounce, we can still draw a bullish case out of it. If it sags, boy, it's going to get ugly quick. All of a sudden, we're making new contract lows if we're not careful. Similar with wheat, we had the head and shoulders bottom to set up, and those are pretty typical with wheat. That's a standard pattern to suggest that the market has changed, and boy, they've been just beating on that thing. They beat on that thing today on Chicago, at least. Minneapolis continued higher. Anyway, just so bizarre. It's so bizarre. And so let's get into USDA. What did they do to us today? So where do you start? So with the wheat side, last month was their first look. The May was the first look at the crop year, the May report. They pegged supply and demand equal at 808 tons, million metric tons, supply and demand. And this month they came out, they left the supply side at 808. and then they bumped the demand side a couple and moved it to 810. And if you've been following along with my balance sheet, we expect it to be 815 at a minimum, by next May or next April when the end of this Wasde year happens. So I think that number continues to move up if the wheat is there to satisfy that demand. The reason I say that, if we pick this apart a little bit, they've still got, they didn't change anything on the production side of the wheat balance sheet. They left China at a record 142. I'm at 132, so there's 10. They left Canada at a massive 36. I'm at somewhere between 28 and 30. We'll see what the weather does, but we're definitely not going much over 30. And the commercials agree with me on that. So that's rather fascinating. So that's another 6 or 7 million metric tons. So that's 17. Europe's going to come off a couple. The French wheat conditions continue to decline. The U.S. is going to come off. I don't know why they expect the U.S. to do so well. They actually raised the soft white wheat crop a little bit, which is crazy. I sent out in one of my market texts that I had moved the white wheat estimate down to 225 million bushels, and they're currently at 255 million bushels. Well, 255 was where I started a couple months ago, if everything was perfect this spring. And lo and behold, we have one of the driest April Mays on record, followed by a dry June. There were pockets of rainfall, not very many. And then we just had a heat wave, which we had about 5 days in the 90s in a row, with a couple warm nights there, just for observation. We left Friday, and this last Friday, to go to a 3-day or a 2.5-day rodeo with the kids, and when I left, pretty much all the wheat was a lush dark green. It looked pretty good. I thought, okay, we're still on pace for an average crop, if not a little bit above. Probably most likely average is best we're going to do this year. Well, when I came home on Sunday, when we rolled in Sunday evening, that stuff is no longer lush green. It changed about 3 or 4 shades, not the right direction. It went to kind of a whitish. The stalks are yellow. I think the crop would burn now. Here it is. Not even mid-June, and the crop would. If the river sends us a fire, I think the stuff would burn. It's way early for that. The lower half of the stalks are pretty much yellow. So, man, that doesn't look healthy. And that whitish look, that's synonymous with lightweight kernels, with junk. Boy, just knocked the wind out of my sails looking at that. Anyway, and it's not just here. It's not just my county that's experiencing this. There's quite a few counties experiencing this. If you get into Washington, they got some in worse shape than that. You get into Idaho, I'm hearing big complaints out of quite a few pockets in Idaho. I mean, multiple pockets where and so the crop is it's just not, well, there's a couple spots who still believe they can do a little bit better than average. But man, those are small areas compared to everybody else. So not looking good. Not looking good. And that's why I bumped it down to 225. And within that 225, that includes 5 million bushels that will come out of that Columbia Basin district with all the irrigated wheat they planted, because there's nothing else to raise. They can cash flow. Not that they're going to, unless something changes, they're not going to make any money on wheat either, but at least they can turn it to cash. Grass seed has no market. Alfalfa is a train wreck. So, anyway. So, it was interesting to see USDA stick with the 255 white wheat. And what's odd is they've got our white wheat carryout at 87 million bushels. It's not going to be that. We've dropped 30 million metric tons off, 30 million bushels off of that crop here in the last 45 days. And the price has not budged. if there was an export sale, if we had the bigger crop coming, and there was an export sale of 30 million bushels, our market would have jumped 50 cents quick. Yet Portland is completely oblivious to the fact that things are burning up out here. So anyway, I expect a much stronger basis this year. At some point, the light bulb's going to hit Portland and say, wow, I guess we have to bid it higher than corn. And yes, I'm being a little bit sarcastic, but that's kind of how they act. Gosh. No carry whatsoever in the market, meaning they want it now, not later, but they're not willing to bid it up now because they think it's not worth anything. It's just so bizarre. So bizarre. Anyway, and I've dove into that on the psychology of it. I think it's just human psychology based on watching the computers trade futures, and it affects everybody's psyche. And for some reason, grains are the whipping boy, and until something really changes that, then we can get back to actual price discovery and see what the thing needs to be worth. No idea on the timeline on that. Shifting gears a little bit, tonight Israel decided to take some steps to eliminate Iran's nuclear program, so the missiles have been flying. Iran sound like they're launching a counteroffensive, and they said that the U.S. and Israel would both be would be surprised by their response. So as of the publication of this, crude oil was up $6 or $7 a barrel. Gold was up another $40-50. What else? The stock market was down around 600-700, and wheat was up a penny. So it's so strange. Another thing that's weird is that, watching the report, usually when that Wasde releases right at 9 a.m. Pacific, 11 Central, that thing releases, and you see a wow in the market, the first minute chart. You'll see it bump 5 or 6 cents and then turn around, sag about 5 or 10 cents from there, and then it'll set the trend, whether it's a bullish report or it moves up, bearish is down, then you'll get the trend. But it'll run the stops on both sides of it prior or right after the release. That's just how it works. And today, I believe corn was up a penny at 1 minute prior to the release. Wheat was down a penny prior to the release. Right after, 20 seconds after 9 o'clock or 11 o'clock Central, the report release, wheat was up one or down one, corn was up one. There was nothing. There was lifeless trade at that report. There was no response whatsoever. And it's just so strange. I've never seen that. Ever since we moved the reports into the trading day instead of having them in the morning before the markets were even open, ever since we've done that, we've always had some kind of response for at least the first 5 minutes. But not today. Not today. I think the people have just about given up on this. I don't know. It's such a strange time. Anyway, but no, the overall balance sheet with wheat is going to be interesting, because we're going to take that 808 number that USDA has on supply. We're going to minus about 20 million metric tons off of that, which takes us down to what? 88? 788? And they've got demand at 810? Wow. That's and they've got some inflated stocks around, at least like with white wheat. I mean, there's not 90 million bushels laying around the country here. I mean, if you look at the grain piles left, I mean, they are less than normal. So we're probably around 40 million bushels, not 90. And the crop coming is not 255. The crop coming is, like I say, 225-ish. And we'll see how we finish, but at least the weather's going to be cool, so that may help save a little quality out of the deal. Anyway, it's going to be a fascinating year. I look forward to the day when we can do something and get some tools in place to capitalize on this. Right now, there's just no opportunity in anything. that I see at all. There's no option plays that look good. There's no futures plays that look good. There's no cash market that looks good. We're just kind of stuck. And so, anyway, the corn side, they didn't change a thing on the Wasde report. Nothing changed, so there's not much to talk about there. Like I said earlier, the weather does look threatening to me. The heat's going to go somewhere. That's a big ridge, and it's in a different spot than normal. Normally, we can expect the Four Corners High to be there, and so far it hasn't. So it's been north of there by a lot, which has caused Canadian problems. It's caused fire problems. We'll see where that high moves. If it decides to move east, then look out corn. And that's what the model suggested today. We'll see if they bring that thing back west the rest of the end of the week. So that's all I got. Just trying to keep you up to date. This is kind of a longer YouTube than normal, but there's a lot going on. I'll try to get my report out tomorrow. The Beavers are playing in the World Series. I wrote about that a little bit. Now they didn't have any players that were kind of not their star players that would show up at the big moments. And boy, at their super regional, they had exactly that. They had some non-superstar guys show up and do some incredible things, and it lifted them into the World Series. So maybe they can put a string together. Well, I hope they do. It'd be fun to watch. So anyway, point is, I'm watching that game tomorrow. I'm not sure what time it even starts, but hopefully get my report done before that game and sent out to you. If it's a little late, that's why. Thanks.